In this tutorial and several of the following ones in this section of our tutorial video book, I will discuss creating and working with selections. We'll explore several of the different selection tools and many of the options available with those. In order to get started, to follow along with me, you can download from My Course Connection the file called Images. Once you have downloaded it, go ahead and open it. Here it is in my file, open images. And what you get should look like something like this. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit to work with this file. In fact, actually, I'm going to zoom in to this area up here to begin with, working with one of my selection tools. But remember, one of the first things that we want to do when you open a new file, go to Image, and check out the size of it. You can see that it's a fairly large file, 15 by 15 inches, a fairly decent resolution. We'll go ahead and leave it as it is, but it's the process of getting used to checking that. Now, another good habit to get into is to always make a duplicate of your background layer. And, oops, not that one. I'm going to push that one into the trash, yes. What we want to do is a duplicate. Come over to the menu list and then click duplicate layer. I'll call it background copy. There we go. So we get the same thing. I'm going to turn the eyeball off on the background here, and we'll just use this background copy for now. And the first selection tool that I want to check out is our Marquee tool. The first one in the list usually is our rectangle one, and you can click, hold, and drag in order to make a selection. And in this case, I'm going to select the pixels in this area. And I am on a visible layer and such. I'm going to go ahead and switch my foreground background colors to the default, and then that way when I get ready to make a change here, we will see it go to one of my background colors. Once I have my selection in Photoshop, you can always tell a selection by what's called the marching ants. It's around the outside edges, the perimeter of my selected area, and they kind of look like they're moving in a rotating line. And I am just going to press the delete or the backspace key on my Windows or PC. If you have a Mac, it would just be your delete key. Now, because this is a top layer and not my background layer, so if I turn my background layer, I can see that there because I didn't delete from that layer. I deleted from the background copy to here. And to deselect an area or get rid of or let go of my selection, there's two ways. And we can come up here to Select menu and go to Deselect. But if you'll notice, the keyboard shortcut is Control D. You will use that a lot. Or you could come outside of your imagery and double click in the gray outer bounds of your artboard. Now then, let's check out another one of our marquee images. Let's do an elliptical marquee. And we can click, and I'm going to try and drag kind of around my doorknob here. Now, when I have drug my selection area out to what I want to select, but I didn't quite get it centered where I wanted, as long as I am still in that selection tool and I move my cursor inside my selected area, I can make adjustments to my actual selection position. But now let's say I want to actually move what's in my selected area. Then I would come up here to this tool called the Move tool. Now when I click and drag, I am taking the pixels inside my selected area. So did you see how that worked? This tool, Move tool, moves the pixels within a selected area. If I want to move a selection's position and not the pixels, I have to make sure I still remain in that selection tool. All right, I'm going to just click Edit, Undo, Move. That'll put that right back where it was. Now, in Illustrator, you remember you could undo, undo, and undo. Well, we can't do that in Photoshop. So either undo or redo are my two options. Now, at this point, I'm going to show you something that we can do to transform a selection. So I have an area selected, and I'm going to go to Edit, Transform. And I could either go to one of these and pick a specific thing I want to do to transform it, or I can go to Free Transform, which will give me the ability to do a couple of those things. Now, I can click and drag from any one of my control boxes here and wind up scaling this. I do have to be careful of squashing or stretching unless I hold my Shift key down. Then I keep my dimensions constrained or in proportion. There we go. I let go of holding my mouse button down and my Shift key all at the same time. Now, once I like the adjustment or transformation I made, let's say in this scale, I can do two things. I can either push Enter on my keyboard, or I can come up here to the check mark, and what that does is commits me to that change. Now I've still got my Move tool, so I can move this, still my selected area, anywhere around I want. So I'll just drop it there. To let go of a selection, Control D on my keyboard will do that, as well as going to my select, and then I can deselect. It's grayed out right now because I have no selection made, actually. All right, a couple other things that we will check out here. When we want to make a selection, we can add to or subtract to. Let me show you where that is. Remember, our option bar will change depending on our selection tool. So I can select this optical marquee, elliptical marquee. It's the rounded one. Now my options up here are where I can make a new selection, meaning that if I click and drag, there's one selection, but if I click and drag again, I'm making a brand new selection every time I click, hold, and drag. But now I want to, let me deselect that. I have an option here to add to my selection. If I click it, if you hold the cursor there long enough, it'll tell you what these icons are. So let's say I want to add to my selection. I go ahead and make my little selection area, and then I want to add to that, and I can drag again, and notice how that overlapped this one and made a new selection to it. Same thing, I can come up here and do so like that. And I can get some very strange shaped selections doing that. I can also subtract from a selection. Let's say I wanted to get rid of a center area of it and make it two separate ones. I could do that. And then there was the intersect with selections. I don't use that so much, but I do use add to and subtract from quite a bit. And another option up here for us is our feather option. Now, we either need to set this prior to making a change. Let's go ahead and actually here I am going to copy this. Let's go to Edit, Copy. Now I've copied what is inside my selection area, and now I'm going to go to Edit, Paste. When I paste, it will paste automatically on a brand new layer. It's hard to see here because this is really zoomed in. When I use my Move tool, I don't have to select anything on that layer. Only the items on that layer will be moved. If I only wanted to move part of what's on that layer, I would have to select it and then I can move. But what I wanted to show you the difference here is that notice with this selection I have a pretty crisp edge to it. If I come over here and I set a feather, let's say of about 3 pixels, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of get about the same sort of shape here that I can from the other one. And let's say I move these. Oop, okay, it's saying that this is empty because everywhere else on this layer it's empty. I did create a selection, but I need to make sure I'm on a layer that has pixels on it. So now when I go to click and drag this selection, and I'm going to deselect, can you look at the difference in these edges compared to these? And that was my feather option. You have to be in a selection tool and you have to set that feather total before you make your selection. If not, let's say I come over here and I want to change the feathering on here. Because nothing else is on this layer 1 except for just these pixels. Turn off all this back here. See, there are only those pixels. Let's see what happens when I want to refine the edge of those pixels. It's actually taking it out to the edges of my selected area there, where I can do a feather, but notice that it did it to where my selection line marquees are. But that's how you can refine it after you make a selection, if my selection is still on the lines of that one. I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel at that point. But that's the difference between our feathered edge, non-feathered edge. And here we did a delete from a selected area. We did a transform of a selection. And here we did a cut and paste selections. And remember, when you paste, it will always put it on its new layer. I'll wrap this one up as far as our marquee selection tools. The other ones under this, though, would be single row. Let's just check that one out real quick. It means that I can only make a selection that will affect one single row of pixels. Sometimes that's good if you have a very rectangle shape in an imagery and you're trying to just clean up edges or things. In this case, I don't really ever use that, but I will use my rectangle marquee and my elliptical marquee the most. In my other tutorials, we'll explore some of these other selection tools. But that's it for now.